Ole Miss taking on Miami. Now, this one I was kind of back and forth with who I wanted to pick in this one. If you saw yesterday's show on weekend events on KTAL News Now, you'll know that I was kind of leaning back and forth between the spread. Miami was a 3.5-point favorite in this game. And you know what they say, defense wins championships, and Miami probably has the best defense remaining in the college football playoff. Maybe Oregon can give them a run for their money if they can take on Indiana tonight and work past that. They got to worry about Indiana first. But Miami, again, like I said, the spread in this game was 3.5, and they won by 4. So they cover the spread pretty perfectly, and it's just insane how often Vegas just gets it right on the head when it comes to predicting these games and the outcomes. And they won 31-27 in a thrilling finish. I don't know if you saw it. It was a remarkable game from the start to finish. It was very kind of like give or take at the start of the game where points were kind of at a premium, where a lot of the game, especially for Ole Miss early on, they had to settle for a lot of field goals, and especially later on to take just a 2-point lead at one point. But Miami in this game, like I said, they won the Fiesta Bowl, the Vrbo Fiesta Bowl. It took place in Glendale, Arizona, but now they get the chance to win their first national championship since that legendary 2001 team, which is highly regarded as one of the best college football teams ever. And if they can somehow reach that promised land again, that would be super, super special for them. I mean, I've always said, college football is just simply better when Miami is actually relevant and competing for championships on the national stage. It's just so much more fun with them in part of the mix, and them being essentially a really, really good program after kind of just mediocrity over the last few decades or so. But the national championship this year actually is in Miami at Hard Rock Stadium. So this is essentially a home game for them, much like the 2019 LSU team, which, I mean, I think it's no debate there that was the best college football team ever, where the national championship was played in the Superdome, which is basically a home game from New Orleans to Baton Rouge. It wasn't that much, but, most people in New Orleans, if you're a college football fan, you're rooting for LSU because it's the flagship football school in the state. So it's a similar situation here where Miami gets to be in front of their home crowd essentially. So that's going to be a huge factor come the Natty. And in the fourth quarter, like I mentioned earlier in this game, Miami was up 17-16. And then an Ole Miss field goal, again, put them up by 2, 19-17 at one point. And then a 36-yard touchdown to Malachi Baby Jesus Toney put Miami up 24-19, and it was so much back and forth, especially in that fourth quarter. And Daquan Wright for Ole Miss ended up scoring a 24-yard touchdown from Trinidad Chambliss to make it 27-24 with just over 3 minutes remaining. So Ole Miss did have the lead late, but Miami, their final drive, they took up pretty much most of the clock and converted on several key third downs, although one of them was aided by a face mask penalty from Ole Miss, which bailed them out hugely, but it was clear as day. I mean, you simply can't have that happen if you're Ole Miss. And then whenever they were facing a 3rd and 6, C.J. Daniels was fighting. He was pretty much being tackled right behind the first down marker, but then lunged out at the very last second to pick up the first down. So they really, really wanted it bad. And this was a game where Miami was shooting themselves in the foot, essentially, for most of the game. They had, I believe it was 4 dropped interceptions, and the last few were pretty much right in their hands. I just could not believe they did not come down with those footballs. I'm telling you, they were literally playing hot potato with it with their teammates while it was still in the air, just bobbling up and down before it hit the ground. And all of them just were like, oh my gosh, how... Even me, at home, I had no rooting interest in this game personally. I just wanted good football, and it absolutely delivered. But it hurt me. It pained me so bad to see those dropped interceptions. You have to come away with those, especially on the big stage. They are very, very lucky that it did not come to haunt them in the end, because that very well could have and probably should have cost them the game. when it's all said and done. But like I said, they converted very, very key third downs and stepped up to the plate when it mattered, especially on that last drive. Again, they had a 3rd and 10 situation, and then quarterback Carson Beck found Keelan Marion for a 17-yard pickup, which set them up right into Ole Miss territory. And then with 18 seconds left, quarterback Carson Beck scrambled into the end zone to make it the final score of 31-27. There was 18 seconds left. Like I said, they had a last-ditch effort by Ole Miss to heave it up in the end zone on a Hail Mary, but it was incomplete. They were arguing a little bit for pass interference, but it's kind of like ticky-tacky at the end of those like sacrifice, like miracle plays that you need to happen. So everybody pretty much goes up for the ball, and there's a lot of contact every single time. So it's really, really hard to call those, especially in a big stage like that. Plus, there's no guarantee that, because in college football, a pass interference call is only 15 yards instead of a spot foul like the NFL. So Ole Miss would have only got an extra 15 yards, and then they would have had to take another deep end zone shot on an untimed down because time had expired at that point. So there's no guarantee either there that they would have converted that touchdown if they were to go for that. But Carson Beck in this game, he actually was pretty solid aside from an interception which got tipped by a defensive lineman. So it pretty much was up in the air for anybody to grab. So it really wasn't his fault entirely. But he had a pretty solid game overall. He threw for 268 yards, 2 touchdowns, and that game-winning rushing touchdown, like I mentioned. So he was pretty solid when the lights were brightest in this one. A lot of people counted Miami out in this game. They didn't think they should be here because they got in controversially over Notre Dame as the last at-large team that was selected in the 12-team playoff format. But they clearly proved that they belong in this one, and they're now advancing to the National Championship. Can't wait to see that on Monday.